And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Curling has been described as a roaring game, with the roar coming from the noise of the granite stone as it travels over the ice. The exact origins of the game, however, are unclear, but curling is widely believed to be one of the world's oldest team sports. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2003.
It's a Wednesday night, just after 7 in the evening, and skip Michael Doms and his teammates are practicing again. The rumble of their rocks gliding over the pebbled ice and those of the Women's League games on adjacent sheets creates a background for concentrations. This team got together a few years ago, and they're a natural fit.
Three of us are in grade 12 and we're pretty good friends, and then Corey, well, we picked him up, and he's been curling for a long time as well. And
team dynamics in curling is a very important part, and everyone on our team brings an important aspect to the team that helps us and makes us stronger. So, for instance, the front end, we all get along with each other because we've known each other for many years. So that's an important part. And also each person brings special technical abilities, like making their certain shots. They're good at what they do, and that's why they're playing there.
These teammates obviously enjoy their sport and the competition, and it's fun to do something you're good at. Dwayne Melanson, Corey's dad, is also one of the coaches helping them get even better.
We can say that we have 3 coaches, whereas some teams might only have 1. So we have a coach here, Dwayne, and his dad, Keith, coaches us too, but he doesn't live in Terrace anymore. And then our provincial coach, Gord Duplessis from Salmon Arm, he coaches us when we're out of town and when we go to the Canada Games, because he's certified. You need a special certification to go there.
Such success for a team formed from the small pool of teenaged curlers in Terrace is pretty remarkable. Part of why these kids are so good is their dedication.
It's pretty tough, kind of, I guess. But I don't know. Tuesdays and Thursdays we come down here and practice, or curl on the leagues and stuff, and Monday we usually have a practice, and school we get to fit in there sometime.
Matt gave up a job flipping hamburgers to spend more time at the rink.
I used to work lots, and now I don't work at all, so I'm pretty much focusing on curling 100%. So all after school until whenever, it could all be dedicated to curling. It does get to the schooling, it does, I won't lie. Like if you curl late, because sometimes we curl till 11, and you don't really want to go home and crack the books open. So that's kind of tough, the studying. So
the boys and their coach also praise their parents for their invaluable support behind the scenes. The kids may think they're working hard now, but there's more to come.
I think I'm pretty easy on them. Actually, I think I'm going to get harder in the start of this year. It's easy, and towards when we get closer to the games, it's going to get a little tougher.
And what will they be concentrating on?
Probably strategy and pushing the kids a little harder as far as their deliveries and all the technical end of it.
We're also doing a lot of physical training. We're seeing a physiotherapist to strengthen up.
The team plays twice a week in the Terrace Men's League and at various adult bonspiels in the region. That keeps them busy, but it's not ideal practice for junior competition.
what I noticed in men's league, the men play a different strategy than the juniors do. So when we go down south, it's like a different game they play. So that's why it's kind of difficult to play a men's league game and then go down south and play juniors. It's kind of hard to adapt, but see, that's why we need to go down south as much as we can to get the junior competition. So
the competition of their lives so far is coming up at the end of February at the Canada Winter Games in Bathurst, New Brunswick. They qualified by winning gold at the BC Winter Games.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, lots of people try to strive to get to where we're at, and I mean, we're here now, so I mean, it should be exciting to see all the competition and all these people from all over the country coming together. I mean, it should be exciting.
While the Canada Games loom large on the horizon, the guys see curling as a team well into the future. This weekend they play Prince George in an interzone playdown. The winner will go on to the provincials in North Vancouver over New Year's.
We've come this far. I mean, there's no point in stopping now. I mean, I've curled for 11 years, so I've already had, and I'm not going to try and stop now. I mean, we're Team BC, we're going to Canada Games, you might as well continue.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. A disability can take away many aspects of your identity, leaving you questioning who you are, what your value is, and where do you fit in society. It's easy to start feeling useless and empty, especially if you can't do the same work or activities you did before. Let us return the archives with Ed Drack.
Traveling even small distances may be difficult if you or the person you care for have mobility problems. Cost, accessibility, availability, and reliability can all be major concerns. For Ed Drack, he deals with the struggle every day to find out where he can and cannot travel. Drack lives in Kitimat and says for people with disabilities, life is a little harder.
Anything from curb cuts to sidewalks, ramps, doorways, to widen doorways, electric doors. That's all very important, eh? Just to improve the quality of life for everybody in town, the elderly, the handicapped, and the physically challenged, and the families and the children. They can enjoy a pleasant life in a town or city. Same, it goes for anybody that lives here.
But sooner or later, you've got to leave your community for one reason or another. What then? Once again, the answer is there's no simple answer, but Drack says it is possible through the HandyDart service. Kitimat's bus is called the Happy Wanderer and brings those wanting to travel to Terrace and other areas some freedom from the difficulties of transportation.
We have a handicapped fishing spot on the river here. And yeah, it's actually for people in chairs to fish from their chair and enjoy the fishing. And Ron Makita takes us out every year or twice a year. The people from here that could go fishing, he helps to take us out.
Drack has been a volunteer with the District Commission for People with Disabilities in Kitimat for the last 11 years. He was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1976, a gradual progression which led to frequent injections 4 years ago. He says the simple act for some of getting out of bed in the morning is a little different for the disabled.
To get up in the morning is the biggest hurdle, to get into my chair and then to get back to bed later on in the evening.
Imagine yourself housebound and unable to drive or get to a bus to go to the grocery store, your doctor, or the innumerable other places most of us usually take for granted as easily accessible. And then imagine not being able to go somewhere because the curb won't let you.
If a curb is not cut, you can't access it, because there's no way you could make it. If it's say you got about 6-8 inches, you can't climb it with a chair. There's no way.
Fortunately for the disabled, technology is advancing at a light-speed pace, and there is now the option of using a scooter or one of the top chairs.
This chair is my legs. This chair is my legs.
Yeah.
I get on so easy. It's actually easier because when you walk, especially when you get older, it's hard to walk, eh? But with a chair, I have 25 miles. This chair is good for 25 miles.
It's hard to think you'd have to plan your whole life around a curb, or the fact that you'd have to stay away from certain places just because it is not wheelchair accessible.
It's amazing, but after a while you get to know those locations, you just don't go there. You got to stay away from, say, somebody's home or somebody's friends, place you want to go to, you got to stay away from that.
And what about the snow? Northwest weather pretty much guarantees that snowfall is inevitable. For the most part, calling a place to see if it's plowed on the sidewalks or around a business is the only way Drack can decide if he can go outside.
But some years when it snows a lot, you don't go out, you just stay at home, read or watch TV or write letters or whatever.
So far, Ed has realized life is about focusing on the positive. Don't get him wrong, he's had a fair share of hard times, but he radiates warmth, humor, love, and faith. And as he says, no amount of paralysis can suppress that if you have it within you.
I feel fine with that. It doesn't bother me that I'm handicapped, no, or physically challenged. It don't bother me.
It's good.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection, a Canadian company with Austrian heritage. It was founded by John Pictou and his brother-in-law, Leopold Bentley, in 1938. They started their own company, Pacific Veneer, a small furniture veneer company that ultimately evolved to Canada's largest softwood lumber producer, Canfor Corporation. Let us return to the archives to learn more of Canfor's expansion.
An idle mill in Terrace and another silent sawmill in Hazelton. It paints a bleak picture of forestry in the Northwest. But head to Houston and it's a different story. The two major sawmills there, Canfor and Houston Forest Products, are in the midst of major expansions. They're pumping major capital into these mills.
We intend on spending approximately $14 million adding an additional line to our planer. Essentially, we have a capacity imbalance. Our sawmill outproduces the planer, and as a result, the planer's become a bottleneck, and we've had to ship lumber off-site to help.
We just got approved $26 million, which was part of our strategic plan. And what it's all focused on is with the countervailing duty and the anti-dumping, we have to continue to reduce our cost in order to be competitive. So it's all focused on reducing our cost and getting more out of the log lumber recovery.
It's a good news story for Houston for the most part, but in the short term, the expansion will cut some jobs at both mills.
The efficiency of some of the equipment we're putting in will result in a reduction of about 10 to 12 positions, which we've notified the union on already.
The total expansion here this year will downsize by 35 jobs, but because of summer relief and holiday scheduling and that, we do not see very many layoffs.
In the long term, however, the expansions will mean more jobs in the Northwest. At Canfor, production will increase at the mill by 33%, making that mill the world's largest. Currently, the mill consumes just over 1.5 million cubic meters of logs annually. The expansion would boost that consumption just over 2 million cubic meters. That will, of course, create more logging jobs and also transportation opportunities. Canfor plans to get much of the extra fiber, 225,000 cubic meters in fact, from Fort St. James. At Houston Forest Products, employment opportunities should expand in the long term as well. Balkwell says the new planer and a new kiln purchased recently sets the mill on track to increase production.
But on a longer term, as we start to make modifications to some of our optimization and ramp up the sawmill, we believe that we'll pick up the production, because that's our overall goal, is to increase production and lower our cost. And as a result, we should employ more people than we have today.
Construction on the new planer at Houston Forest Products is expected to get underway in the next few weeks. Meanwhile, work at Canfor has been underway for several months now, even though Canfor's board of directors only approved the capital last week. Even during construction, Hott says Houston will feel positive economic effects and more money entering the town.
We will have on site at times over 130 contractors in a 4 and 5 day window. We see from now till October, never being less than 40 contractors on site 7 days a week.
And in a region that has seen a lot of turmoil in the forest industry, the news at Canfor and HFP has City Council breathing a sigh of relief.
Well, we're pleased because we think it's going to give us some community stability. We've got a commitment now from the two mills, especially from Canfor, with this great increase that they're going to be here for the long term, and that gives us a lot of comfort here in the community.
Both projects are expected to be completed this October, and when they are complete, over 1 billion board feet of lumber will come out of Houston each year.
This church is an Anglican church that was first built in 1913. But we believe it's one of Smithers, if not Smithers' first framed building. and it was run as an Anglican church right through until the mid-70s, I believe.
Klaus Mueller and Peter Haynes are part of a group now trying to save the old St. James Church. To them, it speaks of a time when Smithers was very different.
We have photographs of when it was built, and it's quite amazing to see nothing for a long ways around it, stumps all around it, so to speak. Smithers being, of course, on Railway Avenue and the first couple blocks from the railway tracks, and the town eventually gravitated its way to where it is today.
Over the years, St. James wasn't important only for religion. It was also a social focal point for the area.
We have many of our community elders that have looked back and have fantastic, fond memories of that church as being one of the first places of congregation, not just for religious purposes, but congregation in Smithers. So
the grassroots group now trying to save this building wants to move it to Smithers Central Park area, near the museum and tourist center, for use as a community gathering place once again.
There's quite a demand in the area for some small facility for, coffee houses, for local musicians, perhaps art exhibitions, to the art gallery, small community drama groups. I mean, there's a whole number of things that we're looking at from that perspective, from the cultural perspective.
The effort to save the church has gained support from the town of Smithers.
There's a lot of retrofit to be done on the old church, and the council feels that they want to get started on something of the heritage here. So that's, I guess, where we'll go.
But it's an ambitious project that will cost a lot of money that must be raised in a short time. The building has to be moved by July 31st.
Initially, we have to get it moved. We have to, right as soon as we get it moved, we have to put the roof and the exterior has to be done immediately. So, having said that, that's this summer. That timeline is fairly tight, and I think that we have to raise, a good portion of that. I think we're going to have to raise up to $100,000 to get that sort of section of it completed.
But before the church is moved, another decision must be made. That is, where exactly in the Central Park area to place it. Town Council is taking steps to revise its plan for the area.
Reinstate the Central Park Committee, which hasn't been together in about a year or more, I guess. So bring the group back together and get their opinion as to where it should go.
The Save Old Smithers group is excited by the enthusiastic response they've received so far to their initiative, but they're seeking even more volunteers and donors.
We are definitely going to be doing a fundraising drive and really are looking for some service clubs and some corporate sponsorship to really help us with that. And that's been quite well received as well. I think this is one of those projects that's going to be like a barn raising of the old days.
I think they'll be successful. They're a determined group, and I think they'll succeed.
Anyone wanting to help save this piece of Smithers heritage can call Peter Haynes at the Bulkley Valley Museum.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Built in 1914 on Lake Ellis Ave, the George Little House has been moved a few times before resting at its current location at 3100 Kalin Street. You can thank George's brother, Will, who is an architect and builder of the home. In this final segment of Open Connection, we highlight another of Will's buildings that still stands at its original location.
If you live in Terrace, you probably drive by it every day, and it's hard not to notice it. It is a small purple house at the corner of Lake Ellis Avenue and Kalin Street, and it stood here a long time.
This one was built in 1912 by the contractor was George Little's half-brother, Will Little.
Over the years, it's been home to a variety of stores selling such wares as pottery and flowers. But in Terrace's early days, it was home to the local detachment of the British Columbia Provincial Police. Yet in a year when Terrace's first 75 years as an incorporated community are being remembered, the city's oldest building seems somehow to have been forgotten. We've heard a fair bit lately about the George Little House, for example. Earlier this year, the city's David Trowan told reporter Kathy Brooks about plans to move the home, built by Terrace's founder, to the foot of Calum Street, where it would become the new train station and would anchor a whole section of the downtown that would reflect Terrace's history.
Basically, we want to create a pedestrian-friendly type of street which has a two-story building, kind of old terrace type of look, pre-50s, and set back a little bit so you can have a little bit of courtyards or landscaping out front kind of thing, little touristy things and stuff like that.
The zone envisioned would take in the surrounding area and would stretch from the railway tracks to Lake Ellis Avenue.
Basically, it goes from, I guess, the southernmost point of Calum Street, just beside Sears, right north of the tracks, all the way up to just past Lake Ellis Avenue, taking in the old jail.
The old jail, or provincial police building, sits at the historic center of Terrace. Many of us don't know much about its history, though. In fact, in the late 1980s, there was talk of removing it in order to provide parking for the Happy Gang Center next door.
It had a heritage designation on it at the time. Ruth Halleck and some of us worked on it, and it was taken off because the owner wanted to sell it.
The Terrace Historical Society has gone to great lengths to try to keep the house right where it is. For Mamie Kirby, there's a personal stake too. Her brother was a provincial policeman, based in Prince Rupert, not Terrace, but that's a small point.
And he really enjoyed it. He was down in the Kamloops division, and eventually in a couple of years he came up and was in Rupert, but then he got out of the provincial police, and I think the provincial police changed over to the RCMP in about 54.
The Terrace building has added significance in that it's the only provincial police building in its original location.
This has been on this spot since 1912, and it has been changed, the outward appearance and the inward appearance, but it's still the original building on the original site. The Heritage Conservation Branch in Victoria is very interested in us preserving some of our history up here, and writing books about our history or whatever. They are very interested in helping us. We just have to contact them and see what we can do.
The building has not been moved, but it has gone through a few changes. However, it still provides a link to Terrace's beginnings, and there aren't many of those links left anymore.
The 3 commission members and their staff felt the visit very worthwhile. According to Commission Chair Lorna Barr, no matter how often one looks at the project on paper, actually seeing it gives a whole new perspective on the magnitude of the power generating facilities. Also included on the tour were explanations of what has to be done to maintain the $125 million worth of equipment and materials stored in Camano, waiting for the project to resume. About 40 people were expected, but only 20 actually showed up. Only one member of an environmental group from Prince George took the time to make the trip. Also missing was a 20-strong contingent from the Carrier Sekini Tribal Council. Lee Ellis, First News, Kitimat.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.